Tonight, the president tackles a world of issues in China, while back home, a CBS News poll shows his job approval is falling on everything from healthcare to the economy to Afghanistan. I'm Katie Couric. Also tonight, who should get a mammogram and when? Some doctors disagree with the new guidelines. We'll try to clear up the confusion and controversy. A stunning new projection. America's obesity epidemic could add hundreds of billions of dollars to the cost of health care. And hotels struggling for business. Some will go whole hog to get you to check in.
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
And good evening, everyone. As President Obama continues his travels in Asia, he's facing some political trouble back home. A CBS News poll out tonight shows his job approval is falling. It's 53% now, 10 points lower than it was in June, and his disapproval rating is up 10 points. The president met in Beijing today with his Chinese counterpart and afterwards spoke about the growing cooperation between the two countries. But there is a lot the two men don't agree on. Our chief White House correspondent Chip Reid is traveling with the president in Beijing.
In Beijing, President Obama was honored by Chinese President Hu Jintao at an elaborate state dinner and treated to a tour of the Forbidden City. But after hours of meetings where little progress was made, the two leaders put their wide differences on display. One of President Obama's top priorities here was to prod China to open its markets to U.S. goods.
This will lead to increased U.S. exports and jobs.
President Hu ignored the issue. Instead, he took a swipe at the Obama administration for imposing tariffs on Chinese tires and other goods. Speaking in the Great Hall of the People on Tiananmen Square, where China brutally crushed a student rebellion 20 years ago, the president raised the issue of human rights, but only gently.
We do not believe these principles are unique to America, but rather they are universal rights.
President Hu stood expressionless as Mr. Obama spoke. Critics say the president is soft-pedaling human rights, fearful of angering the nation that has become America's banker.
Our relationship going forward will not be without disagreement or difficulty.
And it won't get any easier when the president returns home Thursday. A new CBS News poll shows the president's ratings are down on a range of issues. On Afghanistan, as he nears a decision on how many more troops to send, only 38%, the lowest yet, approve of his handling of the war. Just 23% say the war is going well, also a new low, down from 35% in September. On the economy, more bad news. Only 49% approve of his handling, down from 57% in June. And while the White House insists about 1 million jobs have been created by the stimulus package, Americans simply don't believe it. A mere 7% say the stimulus has already created jobs. 46% say jobs will be created eventually. 42% say it will never create jobs. Before heading home, the president has one more stop, South Korea. The top issues there are a new free trade agreement with South Korea and doing something about North Korea's nuclear weapons program. No major breakthroughs are expected. Chip Reid, CBS News, Beijing.
And one more note from tonight's CBS News poll, this on the subject of health care reform. 61% of the Americans we surveyed say people who have no health insurance should have the option of buying it from the government, which is known as the so-called public option. Now turning to the controversy over the new government guidelines for breast cancer screening. They say routine mammograms are not necessary for most women in their 40s. Instead, women at low risk should not get screened until they're in their 50s and then every other year. But Dr. John LaPook tells us this new recommendation is upsetting many patients and their doctors.
Across the web and throughout the country, the new guidelines are inciting anger and confusion.
If the doctors are not going to go along with it, I don't think we can certainly convince our patients to go along with it either.
Dr. Michael Grant will continue suggesting routine mammography at 40, despite the experience of patients like Rosanna Sandlin.
I need to schedule my next appointment.
She started screening well before age 50. After an abnormal mammogram, she underwent a sonogram and a needle biopsy.
I was very nervous, anxious. You pray a lot, you talk to yourself.
It turned out there was no cancer. False positives like hers led the task force to suggest new guidelines. About 90% of abnormal mammogram findings are benign.
Mammogram that is going to turn out to be falsely positive involves anxiety. It involves additional imaging tests.
The task force found that starting mammography at age 40 rather than 50 leads to 60% more false positives.
Mammography is not as sensitive a tool in general in younger women because their breast tissue is more dense.
Each year, about 1.6 million women get breast biopsies costing thousands of dollars each. With the vast majority turning out to be false alarms, critics charge the task force was more interested in saving money than lives. Not true, says Dr. Diana Petiti.
No. These recommendations have nothing to do with any kind of analysis that addressed cost effectiveness. Cost effectiveness was not a part of the discussion. Cost was not uttered in the room.
We called Medicare and the health insurance industry today. Both told us there are no plans to change coverage for mammography. Katie?
All right, John LaPook, thank you. And now we're also joined by another member of our CBS News medical team, Dr. Jennifer Ashton. Jennifer, you're an OBGYN. What are you hearing from your patients today, and what are you telling them?
Katie, my patients are so angry about this. They feel almost personally attacked. They are afraid. They do think it's about cost and money. And what I'm trying to tell them is that I share their frustrations and many of their feelings as a woman and as a women's health advocate. And at this point, I am not telling them to deviate from their practices and their screening practices at this point. But of course, with any patient, we are taking an individual approach to every case, but that's not helping. They're very, very angry.
And John, you know, the figures vary, but thousands of women between the ages of 40 and 50 are diagnosed with breast cancer every year in this country. So what about them?
Well, it's tricky, Katie, because experts tell us that there are three possibilities. One is a cancer can be so slow growing that it doesn't matter that you pick it up early because it wasn't going to kill the person anyway. Two, it can be very aggressive, and actually picking it up early doesn't matter because it's just going to kill the person anyway. And finally, three, and this certainly happens, a mammogram done between 40 and 50 can save a person's life.
So we should clarify, the task force is saying they're not telling women don't get a mammogram until you're 50. They're just saying it's not a blanket statement that they have to get one at 40, right?
It's not a mandate to do it. They're saying you should discuss with your doctor the pros and cons. You can still get mammography starting at age 40, but they're no longer saying we're going to do this for everybody.
And Jennifer, do you think that OBGYNs will ignore these recommendations as you suggested and pretty much keep doing what they've been doing?
I think the chance is that most of them will do that, but on the patient end, Katie, we're already seeing women pull back from their screening. We spoke to George Washington University Breast Imaging Center today, and they reported that they had more women cancel their regular mammogram appointments today than ever before. So I think we have not heard the end of this at all.
All right. Well, doctors Jennifer Ashton and John LaPook, thank you so much to both of you. Now to a first-of-a-kind study about the cost of the obesity epidemic in this country. Researchers found more than 30% of American adults last year were obese, costing the healthcare system nearly $80 billion. And over the next decade, the study projects the obesity rate will jump to 43%, costing $344 billion, or 1/5 of total healthcare spending. More on this story now from our national correspondent, Jeff Glor.
The study says obesity is growing faster than any other public health problem in U.S. history.
Obesity and chronic disease is the leading driver of rising healthcare costs. So it is the biggest challenge that we face.
An epidemic that is not only expanding our waistlines, but our national budget. The $344 billion projection on obesity costs would amount to 21% of all money spent on health care by 2018. That is up from 9% we spend today. An obese person would spend an average of more than $8,000 a year on medical bills, up nearly $2,500.
Finally, in one package, we see what it's really going to cost.
Since 1985, obesity levels have doubled in this country. Dr. Louis Aroney says this is the first time we're seeing the size of the bills.
We now are seeing a veritable tsunami of healthcare costs, all driven by obesity and its complications, diabetes, heart disease, cancer, and the more than 50 other illnesses.
A person is considered obese if they're at least 30 pounds overweight. The report offers startling state-by-state projections. Within 10 years, 6 states will have populations where more than half of adults are obese. Only one state, Colorado, will have an obesity rate under 30%.
It's a wake-up call. We need to find better solutions here and ways to engage people on diet, exercise, and nutrition. If we don't, we're not going to be able to control the growth in healthcare spending.
The study says that if the obesity rate stays at the current level, which is already high, Katie, the country would save $200 billion a year by 2018.
And Jeff, most of us know this, but just to review, why are Americans becoming so obese?
Well, I mean, bigger portions is one thing, more processed foods, less exercise, but it's one thing to diagnose this problem, another to cure it. So far, that has not happened yet.
All right, Jeff Glor. Jeff, thanks very much. And coming up next here on the CBS Evening News, one group of workers is doing quite nicely in this recession. Ironically, they run nonprofits. We'll follow the money right after this. When the economy took a nosedive, Americans started watching their wallets, and charities were among the first to suffer. Donations fell 2% last year, the first decline in more than 2 decades, and they're expected to drop even more this year. But while times are tough for nonprofits, some of the people who run them are earning bigger and bigger salaries. Cheryl Atkinson tonight follows the money.
As head of the Central Carolinas division of United Way, Gloria Pace King was known as a strong fundraiser. She was also pretty good at looking out for number one. At United Way, King pulled in a $380,000 salary and a $2.1 million retirement package.
The surprising truth is, while compensation fell 9% for CEOs at for-profit companies, their cousins in the charity world were making out quite nicely. Their salaries on average increased by more than 6%.
In the environmental category, Wildlife Conservation Society Steve Sanderson got a $100,000 raise to pull in a very civilized $938,000 compensation. Under religion,
will you pray?
Inspirational Network's David Cirillo earned an awe-inspiring $1.58 million. And in the children's category, Chief Scout Roy Williams retired with a package worth nearly $4 million. Nonprofits don't have to pay taxes. Some of them use the money for lavish executive pay instead of their mission. IRS rules forbid excessive compensation, but that's subjective, and the tax man isn't known for going after charities.
They say to themselves, if we don't give this person $700,000, that means that the job's not important and he can't do a good job. I mean, that's the thinking, and it's appalling.
Even some small, inefficient charities are digging deep for their CEOs. One reason they get 0 out of 4 stars from the nonprofit evaluator Charity Navigator. The Association for Firefighters and Paramedics spends more on their president's 6-figure salary than on services. The Committee for Missing Children spends only 14% of its budget helping kids. The rest is spent on fundraising and administration, including the CEO's salary. Back in Charlotte, the United Way has made some big changes.
We're aware that these are people's hard-earned dollars.
Jane McIntyre was hired in August after King and her colossal paycheck were forced out.
You are earning a lot less money than your predecessor.
True, that would be correct.
And you are happy with the salary that you have?
I'm that's a wonderful salary.
$142,000 to be exact, less than average for comparable nonprofits. But McIntyre says it's more than enough when you're in it to help others more than to help yourself. Cheryl Atkinson, CBS News, Charlotte, North Carolina.
And now a follow-up to our reports last week from our chief investigative correspondent Armin Katayan about rape cases going unprosecuted. Armin revealed that 20,000 rape kits nationwide sit untested. Now, in response to our reports, the police in San Antonio announced a new policy to test all rape kits in cases past and future in which the victim and the attacker are strangers. The results will be submitted to a national DNA database. We'll be right back. In Beijing today, President Obama said China has helped pull the United States out of the recession by importing U.S. products. Celia Hatton tells us there's a whole new generation of Chinese consumers ready to shop till they drop.
Sam's Club is drumming up business in the southern Chinese city of Guangzhou. This store opening marks the 173rd in China for parent company Walmart in just 13 years. The enthusiasm for spending money here is pulling this U.S. company and many more through the global recession. It's American Products Day. The store's 10,000 customers are celebrating, snapping up U.S. brands from vitamins to laundry detergent. Clearly, capitalism's a hit in communist China. Older generations still save half their paychecks, but that trend's reversing as a nation of young shopaholics is born. Salaries for young urban Chinese have almost tripled in less than a decade, from $858 to $2,300 a month. But people in their 20s and 30s save next to nothing. Instead, they're on a spending spree. The best indicator? The number of credit cards is exploding, from 13 million cards in 2005 to 180 million now. American businesses are riding high on the buying boom, thanks to people like Zhao Mengyao. She drives a Buick, chats on an iPhone, eats at McDonald's, and wears Nike. Brands are really important to me, and then I look at the price tag, she explains.
It seems that every major American company is digging its way into China. Caterpillar's had a bumpy ride because of the U.S. recession, but in China, its revenues have grown from $700,000 in 2005 to $2.6 billion this year.
The NBA's 30,000 Chinese retail spots are selling 60% more merchandise this year than last.
Nike entered China early back in 1980, and now it's the country's #1 sports brand. Revenues went up 22% in China this year, in comparison to just 2% in the U.S.
KFC and Pizza Hut are also feeding Chinese appetites faster than ever before. They're opening up 1 or 2 restaurants a day in China.
We think this is the best growth opportunity in the 21st century and maybe even beyond.
But perhaps no one's as thankful for China's big spenders as General Motors. The company faced bankruptcy earlier this year in the U.S., but it's never been hotter here, where first-time drivers are still excited to get behind the wheel of a brand-new American car. Still, experts caution it's just as hard for U.S. companies to succeed in China as it is back home.
If you are ready to operate in an environment that is chaotic, that is brutal, but that has real opportunity, that's when you should come over here. But don't come over here with candy corn dreams about some beautiful pot of gold that awaits you here.
Getting that pot of gold requires work, but American companies that haven't expanded to China may regret missing out on the great Chinese shopping spree. Celia Hatton, CBS News, Beijing.
Here at home, Senator Robert Byrd of West Virginia, who turns 92 on Friday, is about to set a record. Tomorrow, he becomes the longest-serving member of Congress ever, 20,774 days in the House and Senate. Byrd began his congressional career on January 3rd, 1953. And coming up next, with a lot of rooms to fill, you won't believe the perks some hotels are offering these days. On travel, and that's hurting hotels. Ben Tracy tells us they're reluctant to cut their rates, but check out what some are doing to get you to check in.
When Damian Clark and Carrie Height checked into the Hard Rock Hotel in San Diego, they didn't come for the music or even the tranquility of the couples massage. They came for their ticket to ride. For $239 per night, they got a room, free breakfast, and a Harley to take in the coastline.
I don't think we ever would have stayed at the Hard Rock if it wasn't for the Harley-Davidson package. I mean, it wouldn't have dawned on us, really.
Hotels are adding on everything from surfing and rollerblading lessons to free roller coaster rides. The industry is getting creative because it has to. Nationwide hotel occupancy has dropped from 65% in 2007 to 56% so far this year. Average room rates have dropped from $106 in 2008 to an estimated $96 this year.
Our choices today are Porsche Boxer, BMW Z4,
At the Beverly Hills Four Seasons, where packages start at $465, you now have your choice of some pretty hot wheels, a way to lure top-end tourists who may be cutting costs.
They have been forced to go to other hotels, and we wanted that customer back.
Hotels are offering unusual perks like this one because they don't want to lower room rates. But in this economy, they feel like they have to offer a better deal.
Instead of just discounting, we'd rather offer a better experience and really enhance their stay and their visit with us.
That's going to go right up here.
Dave Katzberg is getting a deal that will literally last a lifetime.
How are you, sir?
At the Hotel Irwin in Venice Beach, he booked the Ink and Stay package. For $399, he got a room and a bottle of tequila to dull the pain from his free tattoo. That's his dog, Daisy.
I've wanted a tattoo of my dog forever.
So if you're hitting the road, there are deals to be had, even if they're not entirely a free ride. Ben Tracy, CBS News, Los Angeles.
And that is the CBS Evening News for tonight. I'm Katie Couric. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. And for the latest news online, make sure you go to cbsnews.com. Good night.